Kristen White.
And I'm Avery Davidson. Thank you for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Agriculture, the only TV show bringing Louisiana farmers and consumers together every week.
If you've been through Baton Rouge lately, you've almost certainly passed the I-10-I-12 split. You know it because there's a traffic there is usually a burden.
But what you may not know is that the Burden Museum and Gardens are right there. As Twila's Neil Melanson tells us, your tax dollars are helping to preserve a big part of Louisiana's history.
It's a swamp in the heart of a city. Those cars just past the trees you see are at the I-10-I-12 split in Baton Rouge, where thousands of commuters pass daily. And many of these trees, these poplar trees, are more than 200 years old and have been preserved here at the Burden Gardens. It's just one of the many features of the 450-acre spread just off Essen Lane that serves as an educational experience for school kids all year long, according to Director Jeff Caney.
We represent a multi-purpose facility here in that we have both landscape beds to demonstrate different types of landscaping as well as different trial gardens. Burden Museum and Gardens was donated to LSU by the Burden family about 50 years ago to be used for the Rural Life Museum as well as an agricultural research and extension service center. The interstate transects the property, and so one of the things that the Burdens did, very much of forethought, was to make sure that there's a way to get across the interstate. So we have a tunnel under the interstate that goes from one side to the other so that we can both transport our research from one side to the other and also our extension programming.
The volunteers here represent one of the many services Burden has to offer. Groups like the Camellia Society hold events here that helps beautify all of Louisiana. There's also space for honey production from the many hives here. That honey is available for sale, as well as the tomatoes grown in the greenhouses here. It helps take some of the burden off taxpayers while providing services to the community.
For the other part of the Botanic Gardens, we're also a research facility for the LSU Ag Center. So most of our research is directly related to plants. We do a lot of different research with both vegetables as well as small crops.
History is also preserved at the Burden Museum here. Outside, buildings from plantations across the state have been set up to show what life was like in the 1800s. Inside, relics from the past show how far both humanity and agriculture have come in the last 200 years.
The number of people and the amount of labor input that went into it was huge. Today, it's drastically changed with technology and precision agriculture.
There are memberships available to a couple part of the Burden Museum and Gardens, both of which are pretty cheap and offer a lot of perks. For that information, plus a list of events for you and your kids, we'll have a link on our website at twilatv.org. And Kristen, you know, it's just an amazing facility. That story can't possibly encompass everything that's there. I just found out about that boardwalk out into the swamp, and you could see the traffic passing there, but in that museum, there's all these really interesting pieces, and most of which are in the back there. They're kind of unlabeled. You never know what you're going to find back there.
Well, we always ask, would you bring me back? So did you bring me any of those beautiful flowers?
I did not, you know, and you're going to thank me this time for it, because right now the stinkhorn is blooming at the Burden, and it has a pretty pungent smell, so I don't think you would want any
I guess I'll forgive you for that.
Thank you.
Melanson, thanks. Well, the Louisiana Sea Grant is a program housed at LSU that is working on many projects, including efforts to restore Louisiana's coastal lands and create more sustainable fisheries to supply the state's huge seafood industry with Louisiana products. Recently, Carl Wiggers caught up with Julie Lively at LSU to see how this research is benefiting Louisiana shrimp. She's working to bring more profits to Louisiana fishermen, as well as better Louisiana shrimp for you and I to restaurants and our local grocery store.
So shrimp naturally start turning black just due to exposure to air due to an enzyme process. It's called melanosis, and really it's just unappealing to consumers. Traditionally, fishermen have used sulfite products. Unfortunately, sulfite is a known allergen, and more markets want a sulfite-free shrimp. So we've been using alternative products developed elsewhere in the world to see if they'll work for Louisiana shrimp. So sulfites have been used for decades, whereas these products have really only been on the market for a handful of years, and really until recently were never used in Louisiana. So it was really an unknown product, and they are slightly more expensive than the sulfite. The new products are developed from a derivative of kiwis, so they're considered more natural, and we're actually finding that they work much better and keep the shrimp in much better condition for much longer than the traditional sulfite treatment. So to be able to understand how well the products are working, we're using a 5-point black spot scale, which was developed by NOAA, or National Marine Fisheries Service. And so we take a shrimp out every day. We take several shrimp from that sample and try to scale them on 1 being no black spot to 5 being very, very heavy with black spot. And we use that to rank the shrimp. And then across the days, we see how the products develop. So we've seen that control shrimp that aren't treated at all will start getting black spot within a day of leaving the water. Sulfite is a couple days, and these new products, 10 to 14 days out, they still won't have any melanosis. At that point, they may start to smell because they're actually degrading in quality. Like you wouldn't want shrimp sitting in your fridge for 14 days. But in terms of melanosis or the black spot development, that product is keeping black spot out much longer than the shrimp are actually quality. Unfortunately, it's really hard for our wild shrimp to compete at the international farmed commodity prices. So with it being able to extend the shelf life, it's a better product that will last longer in the stores, and it doesn't get that black spot on it. So it helps our shrimpers get a much better price for their product.
Now, these alternative products that Lively's team is testing are Everfresh and Prawn Fresh, and they do recommend using them if you're a Louisiana shrimper. To learn more about this research from the LSU Ag Center and the Louisiana Sea Grant, head on over to our website at twilatv.org.
Speaking of delicacies from the sea, well, this one comes a little bit more from the swamps. It's time to update you on crawfish prices. We've had a warm week in Louisiana, and the crawfish are coming in bit more now. Prices have fallen a bit, but as you'll see, they're still very high from this time last year. Tony's Seafood saw the biggest drop, down 30 cents from last week for boiled crawfish at $5.39 per pound. Live is down even further at $4.19 per pound. Up in Shreveport at Farmer's Seafood, it's still about $6 for boiled crawfish. If you want to boil them yourself, it's $4.79 per pound there. In Lake Charles, Fire and Ice has them for $5.49 per pound, but live, they're almost $2 cheaper at $3.50 even. Again, you should call or check online each day for the latest prices, as they often go down on Thursday or Friday before the weekend. By the way, farmers, you want to know what their cut is? About $3 or less per pound right now. We're jumping from crawfish to dairy, which also has a long history in Louisiana. While the industry has seen a decline in recent decades, FFA members are keeping the dairy tradition alive. The
Louisiana FFA Dairy Cattle Evaluation Career Development Event brings FFA members from across the state to the heart of Louisiana's dairy industry. This week, Twila's FFA reporter Sam Tarpley shows us how FFA members master the art of dairy cattle evaluation.
Hey, I'm Sam Tarpley, and today I was able to attend the annual Louisiana State Dairy Cattle Evaluation Contest here in Franklin, Louisiana at the Dairy Cattle Research Station. Here, they mainly have Holstein cows, and so the job of the 24 different teams here today were to judge them specifically based on their characteristics, based on their udder, their size, and overall appearance. But thankfully, a local producer brought in a class of Jersey cows, so we were also able to diversify what we're able to see and produce. A lot of the classes differed in many shapes and sizes, but together all of our teams were able to do their best, and together they had the best result possible. And at the end of the day, they were able to learn more about the industry, not just get a piece of felt, but indeed learn more about the profession and possibly how they can pursue it in the future. So in the judging portion, we judge cow classes and heifer classes. So in dairy cattle evaluation, we have to be able to understand the importance of a heifer and its calving ability, but also the importance of a cow itself and how much milk it can produce, and whether each cow is the heavier milking or the lightest milker. And then we place it from 1 to 4. In doing that, we learn the importance of them in the industry and how we need to contribute to them as a whole, because without them, then the future of dairy and agriculture would be non-existent.
The Rain FFA chapter was this year's state-winning dairy cattle evaluation team, and they will represent Louisiana at the National FFA Convention in October. To learn more about Louisiana FFA, head on over to our website at twilatv.org.
Pretty soon you're going to get a chance to experience agriculture in an extreme way. The Extreme Rodeo Ag Farm and Fair is coming back to the Lamar Dixon Expo Center in Gonzales. That's the same place as the State Livestock Show. This video is from last year's event, and as you can tell, it's quite a draw. Organizer Scott Email says this whole thing started from his love of agriculture and the feeling he would get going to livestock shows at LSU. Now he wants his 3 children, along with about 14,000 others, to experience what he did, a one-on-one interaction with agriculture.
It's a ranch-style rodeo, so it's very gritty, and all these guys that are riding in it are farmers and ranchers. They work cattle for a living, whether that's their own cattle or people in their own community. So it's based out of that, but as we grew, we started wanting to add more events that we can keep that same aspect alive through education. So one of our biggest features is the Ag Adventure, which is on the grass lot of Lamar Dixon. It's 7 acres of tents, and so it consists of over 75 agricultural exhibits.
The Ag Adventure opens on March 21st and runs through Saturday, March 24th. That part of the event is free. The Extreme Rodeo is for 2 nights only, March 23rd and 24th. Tickets are only $10 each, and children under 5 get in free. We'll put a link to the Extreme Rodeo website on our website, twilatv.org. And it is really a cool event to know that Lieutenant Governor Billy Nungesser gets involved with it. It's really cool to see what they do.
I'm seeing that he's doing several things in agriculture, and we'll talk about that later on in Trending. But farmers and researchers across Louisiana are examining how cover crops can reduce erosion and improve the fertility of their soil. These crops can provide a benefit to the environment by keeping soil and fertilizer where it belongs, on the farm. LSU Ag Center correspondent Craig Gautreaux has this story.
In this field in Rapides Parish, a farmer and scientist are studying a variety of cover crops to see if the environment can benefit from them. Cover crops are not grown to be harvested, but a farmer must still employ management strategies common in crops grown for income.
It is a crop that you have to manage, and manage in that you have to know which variety to plant, when to plant it, when it needs to be terminated to get the most benefit.
Most cover crops are terminated through a chemical spraying 4 to 6 weeks prior to the planting of the cash crop. To get the most benefit, cover crops should be planted as soon as possible, preferably in early fall.
Typically these cover crops are planted late September, October, maybe even into the 1st of November, but if you wait that long, by the time the cover crop germinates and gets established, it may only be out there for 2 to 3 months before you have to terminate it.
LSU Ag Center researchers are studying issues such as variety types, planting dates on crops such as cereal rye or hairy vetch, and how to properly terminate cover crops.
You don't want that cover crop to become a weed if it's not terminated at the proper time, and you also want to give it, again, the most optimum time to release those nutrients or fix the nutrients that it needs to.
A major advantage of some cover crops is they can improve soil health by increasing organic matter and adding beneficial nutrients.
But they do a really good job at scavenging nitrogen, which means they pull some of the nitrogen from the soil, they actually take it up into the plant, and when the plant decomposes, that nitrogen is then available for the following crop.
Because Louisiana has many different soil types, Morgan said there are more than a dozen cover crop research locations across the state. With the LSU Ag Center, this is Craig Gautreaux reporting.
Some of the cover crops being examined are Austrian winter peas, hairy vetch, cereal rye, and tillage radishes.
Coming up after the break, we'll get the latest from Congressman Ralph Abraham about an infrastructure plan where money goes directly to local governments.
Plus, a new podcast for agriculture brings you the latest from around the state. Stay with us.
I now hope they're fighting today.
I hope they are. I'll put a Dorito right here.
I got a fish! I got a fish!
Find your place in the country and the lender who can get you there. Find Louisiana Land Bank. Financing for country homes, recreational property, farms and ranches, and agribusiness.
Before you sweeten your morning joe, before the icing on the cake, before the sugar hits the shelf, it begins with a family of sugarcane farmers dedicated to growing Louisiana for more than 220 years. The Sugarcane Growers of Louisiana, making life sweeter, naturally.
Sugarcane, sweet sugarcane.
Farming is my way of life. I chose this career, but farming chose me.
A lot of people ask you what you do, and I tell them I'm a farmer.
I'm a cattleman.
I am a fisherman.
I'm a scientist.
I'm a steward of the land.
I am a farm woman.
I am Farm Bureau.
I am Farm Bureau.
I am Farm Bureau.
I am Farm Bureau.
Animal Farm Bureau.
Louisiana oysters, salty, sweet, and delicious. But have you ever thought about what happens to all those oyster shells? Most of them end up in trash cans and landfills. The Coalition to Restore Coastal Louisiana is changing this with its oyster shell recycling program, and you can help by visiting these participating restaurants. It's a simple and delicious way to restore our coast. The shells will then be used to sustain and rebuild oyster reefs. Remember, once you shuck them, don't just chuck them.
President Donald Trump continues to push his $1.5 trillion infrastructure plan he spoke about during the State of the Union.
Louisiana Congressman Ralph Abraham is working to ensure a good chunk of that money goes to rural communities. On Valentine's Day, Abraham introduced House Resolution 5016, which he calls the Revitalize Rural America Act. And it's a pretty important bill. Louisiana farmers are already using longer routes to truck their grain or cane around failing bridges and bad roads in Louisiana, some of which are owned and maintained by local governments. Abraham says his bill would put money to fix those infrastructure problems directly into the hands of those impacted most.
We want to allow some of that money, up to the maybe $2.1, $2.2 billion that is now in a fund in the Department of Transportation, to come straight back to the local governments for that bridge, for that infrastructure, for that town's water, if they are drinking brown water, as we know many are. It eliminates most of the federal government. It takes the state government out of the mix. It goes to the local people that know the local problems.
The Revitalize Rural America Act is assigned to the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. We'll be sure to keep an eye on its progress as it goes through Congress. By the way, there's a lot of talk of Congressman Ralph Abraham possibly running for governor. I did ask him. I asked him if he was running, and he said that he still has not yet made a decision. So there's an article that Greg Hilburn wrote where it says that he's sounding like he's running for governor, but I asked the man himself, and he said he still hadn't made a decision.
I'm a firm believer that I haven't made a decision is usually not a no.
Well, the Louisiana Department of Agriculture and Forestry recently launched a monthly podcast on current topics like who's running for governor. And it's also related to agriculture and forestry.
The podcast, called 3415, will feature Commissioner Mike Strain or other agriculture and forestry professionals who will discuss 3 different topics for 15 minutes. Here's an excerpt from the first podcast in which Commissioner Strain discusses the importance of infrastructure improvements for rural America.
So one of the biggest parts of this is to have broadband. And how do we do that? How do we eliminate some useless regulations that stop us? How do we put towers on state and federal land? How do we incentivize it? How do we get that there? The next part is on our inland waterways. How do we bring those up to the codes of this century? If you look at the United States, we rank first as an economic powerhouse of the world. We rank 14th in infrastructure. Those 2 things are incompatible in the long term. And the third one was part where we went and really talked about our investment in our harbors, our ports, the lower Mississippi River, the port of Baton Rouge, port of South Louisiana, port of New Orleans, all the way up to the mouth of Mississippi, the port of Lake Charles, port of St. Mary, because that is the way we're going to move products to the world. And then talking about our rural roads and our rural bridges, 60 to 70% of all roads and bridges are in the rural areas. How we're going to modernize our train system, how we're going to bring that forward. And then another big part of the overall plan is investment in science and technology and innovation and putting this all together. So both from the infrastructure, where we talked about how we're going to streamline the project. And so when I was in the meeting with the president, we were talking about how these great and wonderful plans. But the other part of the conversation, if it takes 10 to 12 years to get a permit, none of us would be here when the project even begins, much less finish. So how do we expedite that? How do we start and get shovel ready? Or how do we do this beginning in 2 years or less? And then where do we find the $1.5 trillion? How do we partner together? The federal government, state government, private enterprise. So we're so excited about infrastructure, because if you look at what infrastructure did, if you think about the Great Depression and the investment in infrastructure, that modernized America and put us first and the world's superpower.
Now, if you like that podcast and want to listen to more, we'll link you on our website at twilatv.org. Immigration has been a hot topic since the new administration took office, but with a new farm bill on the horizon, it's extremely important to see how new reforms could affect agriculture and foreign labor.
That's why the Louisiana Farm Bureau is hosting the 2018 Mid-South Agricultural Labor Seminar. Folks, the organizers of the seminar plan to discuss everything from the proposed H2C program to new highway regulations for farmers and ag businesses. Louisiana Farm Bureau Associate Commodity Director Brian Brose says it is important for all farmers and ag business leaders to attend this meeting.
We have one of the architects of the new proposed H2C visa program that would actually replace the H2A and the H2B visa programs with the brand new H2C program. Walk all the way through that all in 6 hours. So it's one of the best repositories, best places to get information on labor that you can humanly find. And you don't have to hire visa labor. If you're just an employer of any sort, you will find a ton of information that you can take home.
The seminar is set for March 6th at the West Baton Rouge Conference Center and Tourism Bureau in Port Allen. Registration begins at 7 a.m. with the seminar starting at 8. The registration fee is $60 and includes lunch. For more information on the seminar and how to register, visit our website at twilatv.org. Agriculture remains one of the most dangerous jobs in America, according to the Federal Bureau of Labor Statistics. We were reminded of that fact in September of last year when 45-year-old Wayne Richard of Acadia Parish died after falling into a rice bin.
That's why the Louisiana Farm Bureau Federation is teaming up with the Mississippi Farm Bureau to host 3 grain bin safety seminars in southwestern Louisiana. The nightly workshops are designed for both farmers and first responders, medics, firefighters, and police.
Our goal is to get the word out about how to prevent being a victim. And then secondly, if you are a victim, our goal is to train those people around you, those local first responders that can be trained on how to safely and effectively get you out of that grain bin and save your life, because most of the time when you get sucked down in the grain bin, the results are typically fatal.
The first seminar is set for Monday, February 26th at the Jennings Airport in Jeff Davis Parish. The farm of Alan and Aaron McLean will host the second one on Tuesday, February 27th, just outside of Abbeville. And the third moves to St. Landry Parish Wednesday, February 28th at the farm of Charles and Denise Canatella in Melville. Each grain bin safety seminar will begin with dinner at 5:30, with the workshop starting at 6 p.m. The seminars are free, but organizers are asking you to register first. You can find a link on our website to do that at twilatv.org.
Still to come on Twila, what's trending on Twila? We'll bring you the latest right after this.
Stay with us.
This is the moment I knew. His future had no boundaries.
There are some moments only the forest can inspire. Find yours at discovertheforest.org.
Landowners are minding the Louisiana forest for our grandchildren. A place for wildlife, recreation, lumber for homes. It's the right thing to do. Forestry, covering half our state, all of our hearts.
That's low, that's low, that's low. Look, he's blushing. Seriously.
I am a giant panda bear loving bamboo. I almost went extinct, but I'm not because of you. I am a grouse and I almost was too. If it wasn't for the help of the San Diego Zoo. How about you join us?
Save it as a tortoise.
We need your help to bring species back, so bring us back from the brink of extinction. Bring us back from the brink of extinction. I am the bring us back from the brink of extinction. Bring us back from the brink
So what's trending online this week? It's officially crawfish season here in Louisiana, and that has me really, really excited. Too bad you're allergic to crawfish, Avery.
Well, I'm willing to try it. I'm willing to go for it again because actually I tested the waters when I was on a trip to California and ate a couple of shrimp. I didn't die. So therefore, I think the allergy's gone.
Well, that's shrimp, but did you eat crawfish?
I did, actually, at a rice meeting. I went ahead and after that I took another chance because I hadn't really done it since my 20s. So since Neil Melanson's wife, who had a shellfish allergy, overcame hers, I figured let's test the waters, and maybe I've overcome mine because I didn't die. I'm still here.
I'm going to advise you to be safe, not sorry, and that leaves more for me.
Well, as we've shown you in the last few Twila shows, crawfish season is off to a rough start, but this week's warmer weather should have those mud bugs crawling out and the prices going down.
Let's hope so, since the Gulf Coast crawfish boiling season officially began this week. All across social media, people shared the news of one lucky mudbug's pardoning ceremony. Emil the crawfish was officially spared from future backyard boils when Louisiana Lieutenant Governor Billy Nungesser and Zatarain's paired up for the second annual pardoning of the crawfish ceremony in New Orleans.
The crawfish of honor was dubbed Emil after the founder of Zatarain's, who first introduced seafood boil mixes in the 1920s. According to the news release issued by Zatarain's, Emil was escorted down a red carpet in a crawfish trap to the tunes of a Zydeco band before going into an aquarium. The pardoned crawfish will be released at Bayou Signette State Park by the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries. What a lucky crawfish.
Well, with crawfish in short supply the first week of the Lenten season, many of you took to social media looking to find local crawfish for sale, and crawfish retailers were also posting prices and availability for their followers online.
And if you're looking for crawfish in your area, there's an app for that. Baton Rouge couple Ryan and Lainey King developed the Crawfish app. Users can search for crawfish based on price, location, or even user reviews. The app is updated every Thursday with crawfish prices from across Louisiana, Texas, and even as far away as jolly old London. Right now, about 500 vendors are listed on the app, and it's free for both users and vendors, and you can get prices for tea and crumpets. Okay, maybe not. That's the London part of the app.
That's a pretty good tool, I'm going to have to admit. I wish I'd thought of that. Well, now it's time for this week's Twila Trivia. Last time we asked you which item causes the distinction between bourbon and Tennessee whiskey, and the correct answer is B, charcoal. This week our trivia question is, which Louisiana city is known as the crawfish capital of the world? Is it A, Breaux Bridge, B, Lafayette, or C, Ville Platte? To enter this week's trending trivia contest, simply log on to your Facebook or Twitter account and post your answer with the hashtag TwilaTrivia, or you can always submit your answer on our website at twilatv.org. That does it for this edition of Twila. Be sure to join us next week when we'll have an update on those crawfish prices, and hopefully they have gone down a lot.
I know you want that for sure. Until then, you can watch all of our stories online at twilatv.org. Be sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and on Instagram.
For all of us here at Twila, thank you for joining us. We hope to see you again right here next week.